You know, sometimes doing what you feel is the absolute 100% right thing to do, well, that can be the most dangerous choice you ever make.
So, when does it happen? When does that powerful sense of conviction, that gut feeling that you have to act, when does it cross the line into something self destructive? It's such a fine line, a real razor's edge. And we're going to explore that by looking at two very different and very true stories.
All right, for our first story, I want you to picture this. We're going 1,000 feet underground, deep into the dark, wet tunnels of Ellison Cave in Georgia. The year is 2011. And at the center of all of this is an 18-year-old named Michael Perry. And to really get what happened here, you have to understand the dynamic between these two guys. Michael, you see, was this quiet marketing major, pretty new to caving. But Grant Lockenbach, he was the complete opposite. He was Michael's older friend, his mentor from the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Grant was this 6-foot-tall ball of positive energy, a super experienced caver, just a natural-born leader. He saw all this potential in Michael, and Michael, well, he absolutely idolized Grant. So the group heads into the cave. Grant wants to check out this 125-foot vertical shaft they call the warm-up pit. But as they're getting their ropes ready, a backpack, the one backpack with their only phone and extra climbing gear, slips and tumbles right down into the pit. Grant, being Grant, doesn't miss a beat. He says, "I got this," and starts rappelling down alone to get it. But then his calls from below start to sound urgent, and then they get panicked. I mean, can you imagine? The one person you totally rely on, the fearless leader who knows what he's doing, suddenly sounds terrified. His voice, which you can barely hear over a rushing waterfall, just completely changes. It goes from calm and in control to fast and desperate. For Michael and the others up top, who were totally inexperienced, this was just shocking. They had no idea what to do. They were helpless. And then, cutting through all that chaos, all that noise, one word rings out crystal clear: Michael. It wasn't just a random scream for help. It was a direct, desperate call to him from the mentor he looked up to more than anyone in the world. And in that one single moment, everything changed for Michael. So how did Michael take that? He didn't just hear a friend in trouble. In his mind, this was a challenge. This was a test of that leadership potential Grant was always telling him he had. He felt like it was his duty. Grant's girlfriend, Carrie, begged him not to go. But Michael was already convinced. He told her, "I have to do this. I know Grant would do this for me." And that conviction, it led him to do something incredibly brave and incredibly dangerous. Michael grabbed a harness and clipped right onto the very same rope Grant had used. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have the experience for this kind of rescue. He was just going in blind, literally following his friend's path into the darkness. And that path led him right into the exact same trap, a freezing cold waterfall that he couldn't escape. What rescuers found later is just horrifying. It turns out Grant had accidentally set up his rope, so it went directly through the path of that freezing waterfall. When he got tangled up, the icy water started pouring over him, and hypothermia set in almost immediately. And when Michael followed him down, he got stuck in the very same spot and suffered the same terrible fate. 2 years later, Michael was posthumously awarded a medal for his heroism by the Carnegie Hero Fund, a formal recognition of his incredible bravery, his selfless loyalty. It was an act driven purely by conviction that came with the ultimate tragic price. Okay, so that's one story of conviction. Now let's turn to a completely different one. I want you to meet Harry R. Truman, an 83-year-old man whose stubbornness and, well, his love for his home would make him an absolute legend. 54. For 54 years, Harry had lived in his lodge on Spirit Lake, up in Washington state. And this wasn't just a house to him. After his wife Edna passed away, this place, nestled right there by the mountains and the lake, it was his entire world. It was his identity. But in the late spring of 1980, Harry's world was being disturbed. His problem? The government. Yep, federal agents and local cops kept showing up, telling him he had to pack up and leave his property because of some federal operation. And Harry? Well, Harry was not the kind of guy who liked being told what to do. I mean, this was a guy who made his own moonshine during Prohibition. He lived life on his own terms, always. His conviction was simple and it was absolute. This is my home. I am not leaving. and no authority is going to take me out of here. But here's the thing. The government agents, the local deputies, they weren't the enemy in this story. Not even close. That federal operation they kept talking about, it was an emergency evacuation. Why? Because Harry's beloved lodge, his entire world, was sitting right at the foot of Mount St. Helens, an active volcano that was rumbling, shaking, and showing every sign that it was about to erupt in a massive, massive way. And then, something totally unexpected happened. Harry's defiance became a huge media story. Reporters came from everywhere to talk to him. He was this gruff, swearing, whiskey-drinking old-timer standing up to the government. He became a folk hero overnight. And he used that media attention, thinking, hey, if the whole world is watching, there's no way they can force me to leave. And in a way, he won. The authorities backed off. So on the morning of May 18th, it was just him, the lake, his cats, and the mountain. Then, at 8:32 a.m., a deafening boom shook the entire state. The mountain he loved, the one he was so convinced would never hurt him, erupted, burying his lodge and all of Spirit Lake under a massive avalanche of rock, lava, and mud. So there you have it, two men, two very different situations, but both were driven by this powerful, unshakable conviction that ultimately sealed their fate. When you put their stories side by side, the parallels are they're chilling. For Michael, his motivation was loyalty. His conviction was, I have to save him. For Harry, it was love for his home, and his conviction was, I will not leave. Michael was up against an unseen danger in that pit, while Harry was facing what he saw as a misunderstood authority. And for both of them, that powerful conviction, when put up against an overwhelming and misunderstood threat, led to the exact same tragic outcome. Which leaves us with this really tough and maybe unanswerable question. Michael Perry was celebrated as a hero. He was awarded a medal for his courage. Harry Truman is remembered as a defiant folk hero, an icon of American individualism. Both of their legacies are defined by their conviction, but their conviction also killed them. So how do we draw the line between noble courage and a fatal mistake? Is it only in hindsight that we can really tell the difference?